Today on the bass channel, we're checking out the Powerstage 700 bass from Seymour Duncan. Now, I'll admit, this product isn't exactly what I anticipated when I first heard the name. Being somewhat familiar with the concept of the original Powerstage 700, I thought this was going to be a dedicated power amp optimized for bass rigs. The point being to cleanly amplify your preamps or modelers and send it through your speakers. Now, don't get me wrong, this definitely does that, but it also does quite a bit more. It doesn't take an eagle eye to see that there are a bunch of knobs on the front panel. We'll break them all down in a minute, but that should be your early sign that this is not just a power amp, but an actual legitimate amp. There's a 5-band EQ, input gain, overdrive, and effects loop, among some other features. So to start, let's check out the range of tones we can get with a passive bass plugged straight into the front, basically treating this as a standalone amplifier. I'm using our signature McGrath Thunderhorse to cover as many basses as possible while also keeping the instrument consistent. Around to the back panel, we see two speak-on combo jacks wired in parallel. These accept both speak-on and 1/4-inch jack plugs. The Powerstage will output 700 watts at 4 ohms or 350 watts at 8 ohms. I'm using a GK Neo 410 cabinet in this video because it's a 4 ohm cab that will handle up to 1000 watts. There's a ground lift, XLR output, headphone out, and a foot switch input for toggling the overdrive on and off. By the way, all the tones in this video are a combination of the XLR out and an RE20 microphone on the grill of the GK cab. The effects loop send is taken from the preamp overdrive circuit, and the effects return routes the signal directly into the EQ circuit. So now that we know what the amp does, the more important question is how do we use it? Again, when I first heard the product name, I wasn't expecting it to have all of these EQ and overdrive capabilities. So like we've heard so far, you can plug directly into the front and treat this as a standalone amp. But you can also run your favorite preamp pedals or modelers or whatever it is that you use to dial in your tone into the effects loop return. With the EQ section bypass, the Powerstage will cleanly amplify your preamp's tone. At this point, you're probably commenting something like, why can't I just run my preamp into the effects loop return of my existing amp? And you know what? You absolutely can, and it'll probably sound great. However, the Powerstage likely has a few advantages over your current amp. The first being that the EQ section comes after the effects loop return, where on most amps it does not. What does this mean? Well, in short, it means that you can fine-tune the EQ response of your main tone, whether that be to suit the room or to give an otherwise limited preamp more flexibility. Many traditional amps not only have their EQ section in front of the effects loop, but oftentimes will have some kind of baked-in EQ curve, even if the knobs are set flat. Not always, but often. That's kind of what gives them their signature sound. The Powerstage preamp EQ section appears to be pretty flat and neutral. Coupled with those two parametric mid knobs, and you can still have your pedal tone, but use the Powerstage to make small surgical adjustments. Or again, just turn the EQ section off. The point is, I'd rather have it and need it than need it and not have it. Second is that traditional amps are often heavy. The Powerstage is surprisingly light, so let's say you rack mount this along with a Rackmount Preamp, you're going to have a significantly lighter load than using something like an SVT4 Pro or Hartke LH500. bass has an onboard EQ, this is also a great way to let all of that tone pass through the speakers without being altered by the preamp section of a more conventional amp. Just bypass the Powerstage's EQ section, adjust the input gain so it doesn't clip, and dial in the tone right from the instrument itself. Now, for these examples, because I'm turning knobs in real time, there's going to be some dramatic level fluctuations, so I've basically set the input gain according to the loudest sections and applied some subtle compression to bring the more quiet sections up to a similar volume. And finally, the Powerstage is a great option to get your modular tone through the backline cabinet. In this example, the main out from the Kemper is going into the effects return and the EQ is bypassed. So that just about does it for the Powerstage 700 bass from Seymour Duncan. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and if you want to pick one up for yourself, we've also got an affiliate link down there to zZounds. Other than for that, standard YouTube rules of engagement, and I'll see you later.